Guitar World said that Kurt's guitar sound on Nevermind sort of set the tone for 90s rock music. Would you agree with that? Because, you know, Even were coming up. When was your first album? Was it 94 or 5?
That first EP was 95.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think it probably, I wouldn't say gave bands license to rock out again, but it kind of, you know, Nevermind sort of provided a new template for what rock should or could sound like. And I remember coming from the bands in the 80s where I'd use a Roland JC60 amp chorus pedals and having a real post-punk kind of sound. And then when Nirvana came along, it's like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm definitely going to go and buy a Marshall. And and I remember the first Even demos were quite influenced by that period, that Nirvana, Bob Mould, Pavement kind of era of noisy guitar. But the specific sound of Nirvana's guitar was really chunky and really, really hard, you know. So, yeah, it definitely influenced so many bands after it, you know. And like when we did our first record, the engineer put on a distortion pedal that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't feel overly comfortable with, but he said, people's ears have changed, you know. And I think a lot of that was attributed to Nirvana and the music that came out in their wake.
Yeah, they seem to, well, they were credited with, you know, sort of kicking down the door for a lot of music that was to come throughout the rest of the 90s. And, you know, I think it was probably a collective effort from a lot of other bands, but Nirvana definitely kicked it in. And, you know, and I think, yeah, Butch Vig said Drain You featured more guitar overdubs than any other song. There was one clean track and 5 distorted tracks. He was using a Mesa Boogie amp, 2 Fender Bassman amps, and one they called the Super Grunge track, which was using a pedal on the Fender Bassman. And it was said that Kurt didn't like using double tracks, so Vig had to sort of, well, he said John Lennon does it, and that was sort of enough to get him to do it, or he was tricking him into doing another take. So I think it was Kurt sort of grew to not despise Nevermind, but he tried to get away from it, didn't he, from the success and the sound of it?
Yeah, well, I've watched a lot of those Butch Vig clips and read a lot of commentary about Kurt's reaction to the mixes, and you know, you read conflicting stories like the Danny Goldberg book, for example. The main sort of feeling from that book is that you know, Kurt was very mindful of how the band was presented, you know, and how the musical choices they made with regards to who produced the records and who mixed the records. So having Andy Wallace mix it, I don't think they mixed it under duress. You know, obviously Andy Wallace is going to make your record sound amazing. So, but I guess you probably become self-conscious about it if you had success on that level. It'd kind of draw attention to itself in a way that you'd never experienced before. So getting Steve Albini to make the next record was a reaction to that, obviously. So